Where are you, Daniel?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you? It took us a while to get this started, with some technical problems, but it's a pleasure to talk to you today. You're back on American Crime this season as Luis Salazar, a father who crosses illegally from Mexico into the U.S.
Mhm.
And he's looking for his missing son.
Right.
And you previously had a starring role in the first season. So, what did you think about playing this character when the opportunity presented itself?
I wasn't exactly sure what the overall picture was going to be. And so part of the joy of working with John Ridley and Michael McDonald is they have a sense of integrity about the characters. So I kind of went blindly into, okay, who is he? I had reservations slightly, only because he said, well, it's a guy who's dealing with his son. I'm like, didn't we do that one already? And then as we got more details, as I got more detailed information from John and Michael, I was able to see that this is a completely different character, a whole different angle to the story, and part of a much bigger wheel where so many things were dependent on the other. And so I just, once I was able to see the small piece of it and then the larger piece of it, it just was like mind blowing. And I really fell in love with it.
And it's interesting because while both characters that you've played are both fathers
Right.
dealing with issues of family, in a way they're kind of diametrically opposed because in the first season your character was had a lot of animosity and resentment towards undocumented immigrants, and in this season you're kind of put in that position itself. Uh, what was it like playing those taking on those two different perspectives?
Uh, what was great about the first season, he was the guy who came across legally. That was his stand to do everything the right way. And that also happened to be his weakness. He was so blinded and stuck on doing things the right way that sometimes when he had to improvise, Alonso didn't know how to improvise or when to shut up. Uh, this character, Luis, he doesn't say anything unless he needs to. He's all eyes, he's all research, he's all searching, he's very curious, and he's heartbroken, he's sad because he doesn't know where his son is. So it's a very different place to begin with. Um, and they have a different set of rules, and they have a different mission, and they have a different belief system. So it is, some challenges are similar, but because of the child and parent connection. But overall, they're complete opposite. They're on the opposite ends of the spectrum about how they see things and how they want things done.
As you mentioned, you didn't, know all that much about the character and where the story was going to go at first. Did that
Right.
make it difficult to prepare or research or try and get into the mindset of this character where that would be going?
Um, an interesting thing that happened is that John sent me a list of DVDs that he thought would help, and one was The Missing with uh, from the '70s, I think it was, with Jack Lemmon, where his son goes to Central America somewhere and ends up missing, and he goes down and they try to find him. Another one was The Limey, which a guy is in England, gets out of jail and comes to LA to go look for his daughter who's missing. So they both have this international mystery, and they're both fathers looking for the daughter. So I wasn't exactly sure what the structure was that we were going to do. And Son of Saul was another one set up in the concentration camps, where a guy whose job it was to pick up the dead body's clothes was also looking for a family member. That we're not even sure if he was really a family member or the guy just felt the need to describe this other person as a family member in order to help them. But you had that anxiety within the world of trying to find these people. And all three of those stories show you the life of the person that they're looking for. In Limey, the daughter was getting mixed up in Hollywood and some bad people, and then you understand that you get to look at that from an outside point of view. And The Missing, the son was trying to bring down some government issues, and you get an insight to talk about those things through looking for the son. And I think John did that here as well with our characters. That my son wanted to be a farm worker and had ambitions of going to New York, and So the way I was able to do the research and look at all of this was initially just a father looking for his lost son, and his son is lost in a world that I know nothing about. Um, so the research really was about how to be truthful in finding, discovering things you know nothing about, yet knowing the structure of where we're going. So that was the initial part of it. Later on, when I realized I was a farm worker, and there was some debate on whether I was a skilled farm worker or an unskilled farm worker, I went to a farm and I picked tomatoes, and I hung out with people who did that for a living, and had lunch with them and built boxes and went up and down rows, and did a full day's labor. But it's nothing compared to what they do. But it did allow me to have a sense of what that would be like to be working every day in a condition like that.
Now this is a fictional story, of course, but the issues it deals with about human trafficking and exploited labor, those are of course very real. Over the course of making the season, how much did you learn about the subject that you didn't know already, and did anything take you by surprise?
I knew quite a bit. I didn't have a lot of statistics about it, but I was aware about the organizations I've worked with in the past. A lot of focus was on the kids and working conditions, like having toilets near the fields, or the kids having school time and not having to work, and different things like that. And those are elements I was aware of. This story is about both sides of what's needed. People need pickers. People need cheap labor to come and make the farm work. So we're examining both sides of it, the industry side and the labor side. And both sides aren't perfect. Both sides aren't without their own faults. And John Ridley production tries very hard not to make those judgments. And people are human in both sides of this debate. I thought that was probably the most surprising thing about it, how the story overall is able to pick many, many different people who have given up their freedom in one way or another for this other life, for money, to find their kid, to pick food, for a better life, for a dream. And the cost of human flesh that is weighed every day.
One of the things that's especially interesting about John Ridley's work, and the all seasons of this show thus far, is that he'll take a subject that you think or you think you have an idea about, and make it difficult to kind of to kind of hold into your same positions and your preconceptions. For instance, in that first season, the character you play is very as mentioned, resentful of illegal immigration, and yet is also a Mexican immigrant. And you have those sorts of dichotomies existing within characters. What's that like to play? Is that an especially satisfying part of these characters, with that that level of complexity and sometimes self-contradiction?
It is. It's very exhilarating to play. But that's my job. I mean, when I play on House of Cards and I'm dealing with a Republican and the majority leader, I don't know what that world is. So I research it and I try to understand what they're thinking and how they think. And when I play a political leader, or I play a prison warden, the whole time I'm trying to discover how they see things, and then how they are in their normal life. Alonzo's character was very, very tightly wound, it felt. But in playing him, he had just a simple truth. Just do things the right way. Just do things legally and we'll be fine, right? Can't we all just do that? He didn't necessarily have a problem with illegal immigrants per se, but that they were doing something illegal to begin with. And let's just stop that, and then we continue the next part. And so that was fascinating. It just felt different. Every time I had an issue, I would always go back to, all right, my son is going to do things the right way. And here we are, 3 years later, and I'm playing something where this guy is just completely good guy, loves his family, and knows nothing of what's going in. Doesn't even know what rules apply to anything. So the whole rule thing goes away, goes out the window. But realizing how dangerous it is, and how much larger than the individual this world is of being a migrant farm worker. That to me was also exciting. It's just discovery. The whole time it's just discovery, and that's very challenging as an actor when you know what the script says, but in the moment you have to pretend and understand that you don't know at all, that they're going to tell you you're a slave basically, and you owe us money at the end of the day. So that's the biggest, I would say, about the discovery of these characters.
And one of the things about an anthology series like this that seems like it would be, especially nice benefit for an actor is that you get to work with a lot of the same creative people, but you're exploring brand new characters and subject matter. Does that familiarity, having had that familiarity working on the show previously, help a lot in tackling a new character and a new story this time around?
Well, I guess in the way that I am a fan of all the actors on the show. And all 3 seasons. I mean, the performances are incredible, and to see Regina and Tim and Lily and Felicity play these incredibly different characters year after year, Richard and Connor, and you're just going, wow, the depth and willingness to explore in this whole different world. That's fun. That's fun to work with, and then just knowing that you're part of this group, this troupe, this John Ridley troupe. That he just has one simple request. I'm going to do my best, and I invite you to do your best, and we're going to try to do this world and these characters with the utmost respect and integrity. Ready? Let's go. And it's a wonderful challenge. It's a wonderful thing to do.
Now, the show, it's hard to separate, of course, a show like this. It's dealing with very topical subjects from what's happening in the world currently, and the show is in a world now with where Donald Trump is in the White House, and there's a continued promise of a wall along the southern border, and now comes this season, which is dealing with a lot of those kinds of issues. When did you shoot the series relative to the whole campaign and the election?
Well, it was written even before all that became a dust-up in the election. John was working 2 other projects at the same time. He came up with this concept about, modern-day slavery or indentured servitude. And it's a story that needs to be told irregardless of who's in the White House. So the beginning of it, I'm not quite sure, but the final structure happened about 6 months ago. And so as it was winding down and the election was starting to happen and things were getting closer and these topics were becoming more and more heated, especially the border and the wall and everything else, we realized we were on par with what was needing to be discussed at the moment. But it wasn't in any way structured because of that, or in any way was it guided because of that. It just happened to be a coincidence that these are the topics that are the heat or the hot button topics at the moment. I find it fascinating now, and I try to limit my answers in regard to the political aspects and Trump and the wall and all the other rest of it, because being part of the story, I don't want to give any kind of answer or direction or guidance. I just want to have the show come out and have people have an in-depth conversation about what they saw and compare it to what's in the news.
What do you personally hope viewers will take away from watching this season by the time they get to the end of it, and from watching Luis's story in particular?
Well, I hope they take away with it feelings and emotions and understandings of these people that we're not sure who they are. Sometimes you see a guy and you're driving by a U-Haul place and you see 6 guys who are Latino. They might be Mexican or Salvadoran or whatever, and they're, well, if I need to move a couch, those are the guys that get. But who are they? How did they get there? Do they have kids? Are they American? I would hope that people would not just pass them by on the street anymore, but have if for not just a split second, and think, how did that guy get here and what's he doing? And have a sense of compassion for your fellow man, even though you don't know him at all. they're no longer invisible. The person who serves your food or cleans off your table or parks your car or watches your babies, that you understand they're a fully fledged human being.
As you mentioned, American Crime has such a great ensemble cast
Yeah.
involved, and yourself included, of course. But they're often playing out such separate branches of storylines, or everyone has their own sort of section of the narrative. Only a couple of episodes have aired as we're recording this now, so we, the audience, can't be sure who you might encounter in later episodes. But is there anyone whose work you've seen in either this season or seasons past, whom you've watched and wished, oh, if only you could get, work a lot more scenes with this actor or that actor, and kind of get in deep with some of those other performances?
Yes, all of them. I think, last year the kids all blew me away, but then Lily's character in the restaurant, I knew who she was. And of course, the first season where we all was basically shattered glass, we had our own thing. And then when we did come together, it had a different kind of tension. But that's not this show. The show is these many different arms, and we all kind of carry our. It's like the plays for us. Like you play a football game. All right, Benito, run long. The ball's going to go to you. All right, the next one, Felicity, you're gonna drive it through, and Regina coming, punt a field goal. That's what it feels like. That we all have our moment that we're supposed to have that play for us, and then we're there back in the team for the next person to do the thing. That's what it feels like. But just to watch an episode and be on screen with those faces and those talents it's overwhelming. It's fantastic. It's wonderful. And yeah, I'd do anything with any one of them.
This past season, you've had another prominent role besides American Crime. You've been on How to Get Away with Murder this season as Assistant District Attorney Todd Denver, and of course, How to Get Away with Murder is such a drastically different style of show and tone of show, and a much different energy in the story and the performances and all that. How do those experiences compare and contrast to you?
The life of an actor. One character was all about the mud and the sun and the wandering, and the other character was about fine suits and precision and conniving. A chess board as opposed to I can't even say what kind of board Luis was on, but there are different elements and the different parts of the brain and different ways that they were communicating, completely different. And that's exhilarating to have an opportunity to play a wide range, and it's very rewarding and humbling as an actor.
Well, I want to congratulate you again on American Crime and How to Get Away with Murder, and looking forward to the rest of the season. And thank you so much for sitting down to talk with me and putting up with those technical issues that we faced earlier.
You know what? I learned something in the process, and what's wrong with that? Thank you very much for the time. This has been great.